Hey guys, my name is Stacey and today we are going to discuss all about cholesterol. Now, a lot of people in India have high cholesterol levels, and anytime they go and get a lipid test done, they see things like HDL, things like LDL, IDL, VLDL, chylomicrons, right? And they have no idea how to make sense of these things. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover a little bit of basics, and then hopefully after we are done with the video, you'll be able to understand all of this and what are some of the primary reasons for high amounts of cholesterol. So first we have to understand that cholesterol is not bad. Cholesterol is extremely important and it is needed in the body. Cholesterol is type of a lipid, which means it's a wax-like substance, and it's important in the body for development of your brain. You also need it for formation of membranes on your cells. So your cells have semi-permeable membranes, right? Those are made from cholesterol. Then it is also a precursor to many steroid hormones. For example, estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, all of those are made from cholesterol. It is also needed in the synthesis of vitamin B, right? So cholesterol is extremely important, so much so that your body produces its own cholesterol, right? So if you thought that cholesterol only comes from food, you would be wrong. In fact, 80% of all circulating cholesterol is actually produced by your body endogenously, and 20% of cholesterol comes from a diet. And the balance is controlled by an enzyme called as HMG CoA reductase. So anytime you consume more cholesterol from the diet, the body will reduce its endogenous production, and anytime you have less amount of cholesterol from your diet, the body will increase its endogenous production. So the homeostasis for cholesterol is maintained by this enzyme called HMG CoA reductase. Very important, remember it, we're going to need it in the end. Then even in the endogenous production, most of the cholesterol is largely produced by your liver, roughly 80% I'd say, and then remainder is produced by, let's say, your intestines, your gonads, and then maybe other cells and tissues. Okay, so even in the endogenous, liver produces almost 80% of your cholesterol. So now, if this homeostasis is understood, let's try and understand what can lead to higher amounts of cholesterol in the body, and we are going to primarily look into non-genetic causes. Now, if there are genetic reasons, you can see that there could be problems which can affect your HMG, CoA reductase. This can affect this. Then it can also affect different kinds of carrier particles, which we'll discuss in a while. But we are not going to discuss genetic reasons. Primarily, I'll discuss here lifestyle related issues for higher amounts of cholesterol. But before we go into higher amounts of cholesterol, let's try and understand a little bit about lipid metabolism. So let me draw like a really very shitty drawing for intestines here. Okay, so you have small intestines, you have large intestines. Okay, so you consume fats travel to your stomach, and it could be any fats. Let's say you consuming eggs, cheese, chicken, whatever. So it will also have some amount of cholesterol. So you consume dietary fats, and dietary fats will have some amount of cholesterol, more amount of cholesterol, and they'll get broken down. And when they get broken down, they will eventually end up into intestines and smaller particles. And these smaller triglyceride particles, let me write it down. These smaller triglyceride particles are picked up by something called as chylomicrons. Okay, chylomicrons are small specialized particles that basically trap triglycerides. Okay, so you have chylomicrons, and the chylomicrons are going to pick up triglycerides from your intestines, and obviously it will go to your bloodstream. Assume this is your bloodstream. In the bloodstream, these triglycerides will further get broken down with the action of LPL. So let me assume this is LPL. LPL is basically lipoprotein lipase. So they are enzymes. So they break down your triglycerides into free fatty acids and glycerol. So lipoprotein, lipase. So once the triglycerides are broken down, they will convert into free fatty acids, FFAs, and glycerol. Right, and that's why we call them triglycerides, because you have 3 free fatty acids. So tri, and then glycerol. So you have free fatty acids and glycerol, right? So LPL will break down triglycerides into free fatty acids and glycerol. Now all of these can be either used for energy, or it can be used up by your adipose tissues and muscle tissues, and it will get stored there. So this is your fat getting stored. Now obviously from the bloodstream, the chylomicrons will also take excess amount of free fatty acids which are in circulation to your liver. Okay. Now from the liver, if you have free fatty acids, if you have triglycerides, obviously along with cholesterol, they will be picked up by something what we call as VLDL, or very low density lipoprotein. And once again, like I told you before, that your cholesterol is a type of a lipid. It's a wax-like substance, so it cannot travel in your blood vessels on its own, and so it needs to be trapped inside these globules, these protein globules, so that it does not get deposited in your arteries, right? So you have VLDL. So VLDL will pick up triglyceride plus cholesterol, and eventually as the VLDL starts distributing these triglyceride and cholesterol into your tissues, you will further have IDL, or intermediate density lipoprotein. And then further they will convert into LDL, or low density lipoprotein. And this is what you actually see. What you see is low density lipoprotein C. So you see the total cholesterol on your reports typically. So what will happen is, from the VLDL, where you had triglycerides along with cholesterol, it got into intermediate density lipoproteins, where you still have some amount of triglycerides and cholesterol, and in LDL-C you are left with only cholesterol. And once again, the reason why this is happening is because the body needs the cholesterol and needs to send it out to various tissues and organs. Okay, so let me draw this on bloodstream here, move this up. So these are, let's say, assume these are your tissues, different organs, from your bloodstream. Now obviously each tissue, each organ will have its own requirement for cholesterol, but there is going to be some amount of excess cholesterol which they don't need, and so the excess cholesterol from these tissues will get collected again by HDL, or high density lipoprotein, and this HDL will further take it back to the liver for further processing, right? So now this in a nutshell is how cholesterol is transported. Obviously this is a very high level diagram. It's a very high level view because it's a very complex topic, but this is a very high level view of what happens and how cholesterol is transported and regulated in the body. Now understand one thing, why would someone, and if you have seen the reports, you would have seen that LDL, which is also referred to as bad cholesterol, it's not bad. HDL is not good. They are both important. As long as they stay within their ranges, they're perfectly fine. So LDL, which is also referred to as by bad cholesterol, you would see that the range is typically, like if it is below 100 mg per dl, that's typically desirable. And HDL, anything like 40, 50, 60, all those are good numbers, right? So greater than 45 mg per dl it's desirable. This should be less than 100 mg per dl. In certain cases, people have, we've seen LDL which goes up to, let's say, 200 or let's say 250, in which case the total cholesterol exceeds sometimes even 300 or 350 or these kind of numbers. Now this is crazy high. If we have to make an educated guess on why this is happening, you will be able to trace it all back to here, this point, where the liver is actually having more amount of triglyceride plus cholesterol. Now, even if we assume that cholesterol is not that high, but if you have high amount of TG, which is also what we measure as triglycerides, you would see that in the blood report. So typically when your TGs are high, triglycerides are high, your LDL will also be high. So when you have high amount of triglycerides, now this could be because of multiple reasons. We'll try and cover some of them. Let's assume you have high amounts of triglycerides, and obviously because the liver cannot have all of them, it will have to send it out to tissues and organs. Even if you have to send it out for storage or for energy, you are going to need more VLDL, right? So increased number of VLDL, because VLDL is what eventually converts into LDL. Increased amount of VLDL will result in increased amount of LDL, right? And what would lead to increased amount of VLDL? Increased amount of triglycerides. The more triglycerides you have, the more hepatic triglycerides. So let's understand what could lead to higher amount of hepatic triglycerides. Okay, so we know that there is something called as DNL, or de novo lipogenesis, where carbohydrates are converted into triglycerides, primarily into liver, right? So hepatic DNL can increase hepatic triglycerides, and that can increase the number of VLDL and eventually LDL, right? In other cases, if you have, let's say, NAFLD, which is again related, very closely related, these things are very closely related. Then if you have insulin resistance, all of these things can contribute to higher amounts of hepatic triglycerides, which can increase the amount of VLDL and eventually leading to increased amount of LDL particles as well as total LDL cholesterol. Now, in the blood reports, traditionally we used to look at LDL-C, which gives an estimate of total cholesterol. However, there is LDL-P, which is total amount of LDL particles, which is what we now look at. There are also newer parameters. So we look at apolipoprotein A1, and then you have APOV, which is lipoprotein A1, and this is B. ApoA1 is related to HDL. So higher amounts of apolipoprotein A1 means higher amounts of HDL, and is a far better indicator of cardiovascular risk. In a similar manner, this is for LDL-C as well as P, right? So these are blood markers that you would see in your report, and they are far better predictors of your cardiovascular health. Now, why is LDL or high LDL a problem? Why is this such a big problem? Because if you understand this, you would see that cholesterol is being carried from liver to different kinds of organs with the help of LDL. And LDL is carrying what? It's carrying cholesterol. Now, cholesterol is a wax-like substance, right? It cannot travel on its own. The more LDL particles you have, the more cholesterol you have in the bloodstream, the higher chances of LDL getting oxidized into your arteries. And what happens if one of those arteries happen to be close to your heart, right? So it can result in plaque formation in and around arteries of your heart, which can clog your heart, cause high blood pressure, could lead to atherosclerosis, and eventually heart attacks. And that's why higher amounts of LDL particles, or there's something called as small density LDL particles, right? So SD, LDL, C and P, right? So even they are there. So all of these things can oxidize in your blood vessels and can result in high cardiovascular risk. On the other hand, why do we need HDL? Because HDL is the one which is clearing excess amount of cholesterol and bringing it back to liver, right? So with this, I hope you understand how cholesterol is transported, how it is its homeostasis is maintained with the help of the HMG CoA reductase enzyme. And for people who have high amounts of cholesterol, doctors typically prescribe them statins. And so when they take statins, what statin does is it inhibits the action of HMG-CoA reductase. And what this does is it basically suppresses the endogenous production of cholesterol. So when it suppresses the endogenous production of cholesterol, you are going to need less amount of LDL, right? So body stops producing high amounts of LDL because you have less amount of circulating total cholesterol. Now that can have some effects, like, because cholesterol is also needed for testosterone, progesterone, estrogen. So those are some of the things that people will have to manage. Okay, so with this, I hope you are able to understand a little bit about cholesterol. And like I said, the main reason, which are non-genetic reasons, if you ignore the familial hyper or hypocholesteremia, the main lifestyle issues are basically this: higher amount of hepatic triglycerides. So DNL, NAFLD, insulin resistance, diabetes, obesity, all of these things are one of the primary reasons for your increased cholesterol. Reducing your body fat percentage, exercising every single day, consuming less amount of saturated fats, and in general consuming lesser amount of calories can help your cholesterol levels bring back to normal. Now, sometimes when people go on ketogenic diet where you have higher fat oxidation, people can see a temporary jump in the number of triglycerides, circulating triglycerides, and it can also lead to a temporary jump in LDL cholesterol. So total cholesterol can increase, but the number of particles is also very important, right? So there are caveats, there are nuances, but I'm not going to go into the depth of those. I hope this a little episode, I'm assuming like 13-14 minutes, is able to give you some overview, and you would be able to decide it better now. Okay, and once again, to people who are liking these long format videos, I cannot thank you enough. I did not want to make these long format videos, even though I love making them. If you're watching them, I have no reason to stop. I'll keep making them. Please keep watching them. Thank you so much.